We read there the burden of the word of the Lord to Israel by Malachi. I have loved you, saith the Lord. Yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith the Lord? Yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. And your eyes shall see, and ye shall say, the Lord will be magnified from the border of Israel. A son honoureth his father, and a servant his master. If then I be a father, where is mine honour? And if I be a master, where is my fear, saith the Lord of hosts unto you, O priests that despise my name? And ye say, wherein have we despised thy name? Ye offer polluted bread upon mine altar, and ye say, wherein have we polluted thee? In that ye say, the table of the Lord is contemptible. And if ye offer the blind for sacrifice, is it not evil? And if ye offer the lame and sick, is it not evil? Offer it now unto thy governor. Will he be pleased with thee, or accept thy person, saith the Lord of hosts? And now I pray you, beseech God that he will be gracious unto us. This hath been by your means. Will he regard your persons, saith the Lord of hosts? Who is there even among you that would shut the doors for naught? Neither do ye kindle fire on mine altar for naught. I have no pleasure in you, saith the Lord of hosts, neither will I accept an offering at your hand. For from the rising of the sun even unto the going down of the same, my name shall be great among the Gentiles. And in every place incense shall be offered unto my name, and a pure offering, for my name shall be great among the heathen, saith the Lord of hosts. But ye have profaned it, in that ye say, the table of the Lord is polluted, and the fruit thereof, even his meat, is contemptible. Ye said also, behold, what a weariness is it, and ye have snuffed at it, saith the Lord of hosts. And ye brought that which was torn, and the lame, and the sick. Thus ye brought an offering. Should I accept this of your hand, saith the Lord? But cursed be the deceiver, which hath in his flock a male, and voweth, and sacrifices unto the Lord a corrupt thing. For I am a great king, saith the Lord of hosts, and my name is dreadful among the heathen. May the Lord give us an understanding, at least of some of the things that we read there in the first chapter of Malachi's prophecy. The text, as I say, is the first 5 verses of this chapter. Perhaps not a passage that immediately grabs us and which we necessarily immediately can understand. But I trust as we work our way through it that our ability to comprehend will be increased. The burden of the word of the Lord to Israel by Malachi. I have loved you, saith the Lord. Yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith the Lord? Yet I loved Jacob. I hated Esau and laid his mountains, his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. And your eyes shall see, and ye shall say, the Lord will be magnified from the border of Israel. The prophecy of Malachi, of course, is the last of the Old Testament prophecies. This prophecy was followed by some 400 years of silence. In other words, God did not speak again until he sent the angel Gabriel to Zacharias and Elizabeth to announce the birth of John the Baptist. Now that fact alone points to the importance of this prophecy. But what makes this prophecy even more important for the church today is that the times in which Malachi prophesied bear close resemblance to those of our own day and age. Malachi prophesied to the children of Judah following their return from the Babylonian captivity. You might recall the children of Judah were taken into captivity by the Babylonians in 3 waves that spanned the years 606 to 586 BC. The children of Judah were held captive in Babylon for some 70 years. That captivity came to an end following the victory of the Medes and the Persians over the Babylonians in the year 539 BC. Following that victory, Cyrus the Great, king of the Medo-Persian Empire, permitted the children of Judah to return to their homeland. And as a result of Cyrus's determination, in the year 536 BC, under the leadership of Zerubbabel, some 42,000 plus Jews returned home from Babylon to Judah. Those who returned engaged initially in the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. That temple had been destroyed by the Babylonians. The task of rebuilding was completed in the year 515 BC. Now, one might have thought that the restoration of the temple would have heralded a new spiritual beginning for the children of Judah. But sadly, no spiritual reformation ever materialised. A new generation arose that was not given to the besetting sins of idolatry and superstition that had occasioned the Babylonian captivity. But nonetheless, this new generation also had its own besetting sins. The new generation was characterised by a spirit of self-righteousness that manifested itself in outward formalism and spiritual indifference. Yes, the children of Judah still worship God, but their worship did not spring from sanctified hearts. The cavalier attitude of the people toward the worship of God encouraged also the corruption of the priestly office. Defective and inferior sacrifices became acceptable. Instead of bringing the best of the flocks, the people, with the connivance of the priests, brought animals that were crippled and diseased. The requirements of the ceremonial law were neglected. Furthermore, at this time in the history of the children of Judah, we find that divorce had become commonplace. Men put away their wives in order to pursue relationships with the godless women who had taken up residency in Judah whilst the children of Judah were in captivity. Tithes and offerings were neglected or begrudgingly given. The Sabbath was desecrated. It was in the midst of this spiritual decay that Nehemiah actually returned to Jerusalem from Persia, and he returned, as you'll be well aware, with the goal of rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. And he completed that Herculean task in the year 444 BC. Following the completion of the walls, though, Nehemiah returned to Persia. It was during the period of Nehemiah's absence from Jerusalem that the Lord sent Malachi to prophesy to the children of Judah. Consequently, Malachi was a contemporary of Nehemiah, and in all likelihood, he prophesied to Judah in the period 430 to 420 BC. What was the focus of Malachi's prophecy? It was to expose and rebuke the insincere religion that had become commonplace among the children of Judah. Through Malachi's prophetic utterances, God sought to awaken a people whose religious cynicism and skepticism had resulted in careless and dead worship. We begin a consideration of this book this evening with these first 5 verses of chapter 1. I've given the message this evening the title, I Have Loved You. That's what God said actually concerning the children of Judah. I have loved you. I have loved you is the title into the sermon. The division of the sermon is this: the Lord's love questioned, secondly the Lord's love established, and then finally the Lord's love acclaimed. The prophecy of Malachi opens with the words, the burden of the word of the Lord to Israel by Malachi. Malachi describes his prophecy as a burden, and that is a language that is familiar in the Old Testament scriptures. The designation of a burden alerts us to the fact that Malachi's prophecy contained weighty, divine, and authoritative pronouncements of judgment. As verse 1 declares plainly, what follows in our text are not Malachi's thoughts, but they are actually the thoughts and the judgments of God himself. Malachi, in other words, was, as his name actually reveals, was simply a messenger. Malachi, the messenger of the Lord, was appointed to convey the burden of the word of the Lord to Israel. And he conveyed this burden, he conveyed this judgment of the Lord to the church of that day, a church that had drifted away from its spiritual moorings. This was a word to the covenant people of God. Malachi brought this burden to a people who had grown presumptuous, contemptuous, even cynical about the promises of God. Significantly and pointedly, the very first thing that the Lord takes up with the children of Judah is their questioning of his eternal love for them as his covenant people. That's what appears from the Lord's declaration in verse 2 of our text. Speaking to the children of Judah, the Lord declares, I have loved you, saith the Lord. So here at the very outset of this prophecy, or for anything else, the Lord, through Malachi, reminds the children of Judah that they were eternally loved by him. He, the Almighty God, the ever-faithful God of the covenant, loved them. They were precious in his sight. Indeed, he had always loved them. Now, that statement does not apply to the children of Judah head for head, but it certainly did apply to the children of Judah as the covenant people of God. Moses, in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 6 through 8, actually spells out the nature of God's love for his covenant children. There in Deuteronomy 7, verses 6 through 8, we read this: For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. The Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you, because you were more in number than any people, for ye were the fewest of all people, but because the Lord loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers, hath the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand, and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Why did the Lord love his covenant people? Why did he love the church of that day? It was not an account of anything meritorious in them. It wasn't because there's anything inherent in the children of Judah that warranted and demanded God's love. In truth, the opposite was the case so far as the children of Judah were concerned. As Moses notes, the children of Israel were not chosen by God because they were a great nation. They were, in fact, a small and insignificant nation. Militarily, they were insignificant, nor did they enjoy great material wealth. There was nothing about the children of Israel that made them particularly desirable or attractive, or that demanded that they should be loved by God. Now, the children of Israel, the children of Judah, have been loved by the Lord according to his sovereign elective love. He loved them according to his sovereign good pleasure. God had graciously bestowed his love upon them, not because of who they were or what they were, but because he purposed to do so. He loved them in Jesus Christ, and he purposed to save them in and through him. He had shown that love to them time and time again, of course, throughout their history. It was his sovereign elective love that had seen him deliver their fathers out of the bondage and slavery of Egypt. It was that same love that saw him bring them through the trials and the tribulations of the wilderness. It was that same love that was manifested in the Lord's giving to them of the land of Canaan. It was that same love that had resulted in Cyrus the Great delivering them from the hand of the Babylonians and allowing them to return to their homeland. It was that same love that had seen the temple rebuilt and the worship of God restored. It was that same love that had seen the walls of Jerusalem rebuilt and the city fortified. And it was that same love that some 400 years later would actually see Jesus Christ born in lowly Bethlehem in order that the people of God might be saved. So again and again throughout their history, the Lord had demonstrated his love for his covenant people. The history of Israel, Judah, was a living portrait of the love of God for his people. Mind you, a love that had been maintained against a persistent backdrop of sin and rebellion on the part of the children of Judah. That ought not to be lost sight of. The children of Judah, by and large, were those who engaged consistently in sin and rebellion. How many times had the children of Israel, Judah, down through the generations, trampled underfoot the love of God for them? Just think of the time spent in the wilderness, the events that occurred at Marah, at Rephidim, at Sinai, the golden calf. The children of Judah's refusal to embrace the report of Joshua and Caleb, that was another act of unbelief on the part of the people. And recall also, following their entrance into the land of Canaan, how that despite what God had said to them, they failed to drive the Canaanites out of the land. Again, an act of rebellion on the part of the children of Judah. Furthermore, you find throughout their history the frequent dalliances with the gods of the heathen. Yet notwithstanding Judah, Israel's unfaithfulness, the Lord had not abandoned them. He had not cast them off, but rather he continued to manifest his love toward them. I have loved you, saith the Lord. An amazing love, in many ways an incomprehensible love. What greater encouragement, what greater blessing could the church of that day have experienced? Now, the abiding love of the Lord for Judah is foundational to an understanding of the book of Malachi. It goes to the very core of the Lord's issues with the children of Judah. The egregious nature of the children of Judah's spiritual indifference, their weariness with the worship of the Lord, their rejection and violation of his covenant, could all be traced back to their failure to appreciate that they are actually loved by the Lord. Notwithstanding, the children of Judah had seen concrete demonstrations of God's love for them time and time again. they as a people were insensitive and coldly analytical as regards God's love for them. The fact that the Lord loved them, the fact that the Lord had repeatedly demonstrated that love toward them, failed to make any serious impression upon the minds of the children of Judah. And that reflected their hard, ungrateful hearts. The children of Judah were so spiritually sick, so self-absorbed, that they actually failed to appreciate how blessed they were to be loved by God. In fact, they could not really even see the manifestation of God's love for them. They had a conception of what that love ought to look like, but when they didn't see what they conceived to be the appropriate expression of God's love for them, they then began to question whether God loved them at all. The sad and painful reality is that it is also often the case that we too fail to appreciate how blessed we are to be loved by God. The reality is that we're not all that different from the children of Judah. Often we have a conception of how it is that the Lord should manifest his love toward us. And like the children of Judah, if we don't see the Lord manifesting his love to us in the way that we think is appropriate or that we desire, then we too begin to question as to whether or not the Lord truly loves us. And so the Lord's declaration here to Judah could equally be applied to us. The Lord really here through the prophet Malachi says to us, I have loved you. I have loved you. Not only has the Lord loved us, but he has manifested that love just as he did actually with the children of Judah. Indeed, he manifests that love to us every day. As Solomon reminds us in Lamentations 3:22 and 23, so the Lord's mercies that we're not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. God manifests his love actually to us every day. We may not recognize it, we may not appreciate it, but that is the reality. God manifests his love to us every day. The Lord loves his church. According to his sovereign good pleasure, he has chosen a people unto himself in and through Jesus Christ. And in his sovereign mercy and grace, he bestows his love upon his elect. And he works in their hearts by his Spirit and enables them to embrace the glorious truth of the gospel. Therein you actually see the manifestation of God's love. That he actually opens our eyes to behold the beauty of Jesus Christ and enables us to actually embrace him as our own Saviour. The Lord has given us, you see, the gift of faith so that we are enabled to believe and trust in Jesus Christ for our salvation. Is it not true, brethren, that we have been the beneficiaries of God's extraordinary love? We have seen that love manifested in our own lives. Moreover, like the children of Judah, we've experienced that love, notwithstanding the frequency and the ugliness of our sins. But what has the love of God meant to us? Have we responded to the love of God positively? Do we appreciate that love was manifested in the sending of his own Son into this world, sinners to save? Are we overwhelmed with gratitude and thankfulness for the love of God that's been manifested toward us? Do we stand amazed at that love? Do we delight in that love? Do we, as a consequence, live in a way that reflects our gratitude for God's love toward us? Or is our response more like that of the children of Judah in Malachi's day? That brings us to how the children of Judah responded to God's love for them. This is what they said. Verse 2, "Wherein hast thou loved us?" Wherein hast thou loved us? And what we see there is the children of Judah openly question whether the Lord actually did love them and whether the Lord had actually manifested his love toward them. They responded in that way because they had not received the temporal blessings that they considered the Lord had actually promised to them. The Lord had not manifested his love to them in the way that they desired or the way that they thought appropriate. Yes, the Lord had given them the land of Canaan. And yes, the Lord had promised them a place in the land of Canaan, in that land that was to be a land flowing with milk and honey. But for many of those that had returned from Babylon, life in Canaan was extremely difficult. It was distressing, in fact. The Samaritans continued to oppose and hinder them at every turn. And living in Canaan at this time, there were many, many discouragements. Some of those discouragements are reflected in the book of Malachi. Crops had failed, droughts and plagues had ensued, and the result was that many were hard pressed to make a living. Canaan, for many, was not actually a land flowing with milk and honey. And the glowing visions of Canaan found in the writings of the pre-exilic prophets had not actually materialised, nor the surrounding nations had been shaken as Haggai had prophesied. Instead of the nations being shaken, Persia reigned supreme and maintained tight control over the affairs of Judah. Children of Judah were surrounded by enemies. As a result, the children of Judah in Malachi's day seriously questioned the love of God for them. In their minds, the love of God for them was just words. It didn't come to concrete expression in their lives so far as they were concerned. From their perspective, they could not see the love of God manifested in their lives. And therefore, in cynical tones, the children of Judah responded to the declaration of God's love for them by saying, wherein hast thou loved us? In other words, show us, prove to us how it is that you have actually loved us. Where's the evidence of your love? We cannot see it. We're hungry. We're suffering from drought and famine. We're impoverished. We're persecuted. And you say you have loved us. Show us your love. And that attitude led the children of Judah into spiritual apathy and indifference. And brethren, the response of the children of Judah to God's declaration of love for them is something that we also grapple with in the midst of the difficulties and trials that we face as Christians in the present day. There are times in our lives when the Lord's love for us seems at best remote, if not non-existent. We look at the circumstances of our lives and we question, wherein has the Lord loved us? And this challenge to God's love for us arises in the context of the difficulties of our lives, in the midst of our daily struggles, the struggles that come with sickness, with the pressures of life, with financial constraints, with tensions in relationships, with the pressures that arise in marriages, with the difficulties that tend to manifest themselves in families, so that nothing in our lives often appears settled or stable. At times everything is in a state of flux. Nothing seems to go right. We seemingly go from one crisis to the next, confronted by one problem after another, and that leads us to join voice with the children of Judah, so that we say, we're in, as the Lord loved us. Through Malachi, and here's our second point this evening, the Lord's love established. Through Malachi, the Lord responds to the children of Judah's questioning of his love for them. And interestingly, the Lord does not actually point them to the manifestation of his love in their history. He did not direct them to the undeniable track record of his love. He doesn't say to the children of Judah, consider the events down through history that manifest my love for you. He doesn't say to them, consider this event. Look at what I did on that occasion. See there, my love. See there again, my love, in that incident. He could have done that, and he would have been perfectly justified to have done that. But that's not the approach that the Lord takes here in the prophecy of Malachi. In fact, the Lord responds in a way that might seem somewhat strange to us, in a way that we would not expect. This was his response, verses 2 and 3. He says, was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith the Lord? Yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau. Was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith the Lord? Yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau. The Lord responds to the question of his love by the children of Judah with his own question. Was not Esau Jacob's brother? The children of Judah, of course, would have been well aware that the answer to the Lord's question was yes. Esau was Jacob's brother. In fact, Esau was Jacob's twin brother. Esau and Jacob were the twin sons of Isaac and Rebekah. And moreover, Esau was Jacob's older brother. Esau was Isaac and Rebekah's firstborn son, and as such, the one entitled to the birthright. So what's the point? What's the point that is being made here? The point is the electing love of God. The children of Judah were the descendants of Jacob. Jacob, whom the Lord loved. And the Lord reminds the children of Judah that their position was no different to that of their father Jacob. God loved Jacob, and God loved them. Jacob, of course, had not chosen the Lord, but the Lord had chosen him. He and Esau were the sons, of course, of the same mother. They shared the same womb. They were raised in the same family. Yet the Lord loved one and hated the other. And the same was true of their descendants. The children of Judah who came from Jacob were loved of God, whereas the Edomites, who were the descendants of Esau, fell under the wrath and curse of God. Why was that? Why did God love the children of Judah? Why did he bestow his grace and mercy upon them and not upon the descendants of Esau? The reason was not because the Lord was constrained or forced to love the children of Judah, nor was it because the children of Judah had earned or merited God's love, whereas the Edomites had not. It wasn't because the children of Judah deserved God's love and the Edomites did not, nor was it because there was anything worthy about the children of Judah. There was nothing that made them, for example, more worthy than the children of the descendants of Esau. The reality was that God loved the children of Judah according to his sovereign good pleasure. God, in his unfathomable mercy and grace, chose the children of Judah as a people, as I mentioned earlier, not head for head, but he chose them as a people upon whom he would bestow his love. And the reason that he did so lay in the inscrutable wisdom of God. And it was for the same reason that God loved Jacob, but hated Esau. Now, Paul makes that plain in the passage we read in Romans 9 this evening. In Romans 9, 11 through 13, we read this: "For the children," and the reference there is to Jacob and Esau, "for the children, being not yet born, neither having done any good or evil," notice this, "that the purpose of God according to election might stand, not of works, but of him that calleth. It was said unto her, The elders shall serve the younger, as it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated." And here in our text, Malachi contrasts the Lord's dealings with the children of Judah with his dealings with the descendants of Esau. And though the children of Judah had been taken into captivity by the Babylonians, the Lord in his love had paved the way for their return to Canaan. Therein is manifested the love of God for the children of Judah. By way of contrast, what of the Edomites? What had become of the Edomites? They too actually had come under the yoke of the Babylonians. And this is what the Lord had done to Edom. Verse 3, "He had laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness." As we know from the prophecy of Obadiah, the Edomites had actually assisted the Babylonians in overthrowing Jerusalem, and they had facilitated the captivity of the children of Judah. And that was one of the great sins of the Edomites, that they actually were instrumental in the captivity of the covenant people of God. The Edomites considered themselves, you see, to be impregnable, given their mountainous strongholds and their strong military alliances. But the confidence of the Edomites was misplaced. In the providence of God, the Edomites themselves, following the captivity of the children of Judah, the Edomites themselves actually fell under the might of the Babylonians. The dragons or the jackals of the wilderness seized the mountainous strongholds of the Edomites. And just as jackals pick clean the carcasses of dead animals, so too the Babylonians picked clean the nation of Edom. Edom's attitude was that though she was beaten and downcast, she would return. That was the confidence that Edom had in her own mobility. Verses 3 and 4, "Whereas Edom saith, We are impoverished, We will return and build the desolate places. They're going to rebuild the cities and the strongholds of Edom. But you know, that never occurred. That never occurred. Why did that never occur? Thus saith the Lord of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down. And they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. Now, because of the Lord's hand against them, the Edomites were never able to re-establish themselves following the assault upon them by the Babylonians. And as a result, the Edomites disappeared into the dust of history. All that remained of the Edomites following their decimation by the Babylonians was their reputation. And their reputation was that of an evil people. So that as we read there in verses 3 and 4, and the reference there is to the surrounding nations, the surrounding nations shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. That's all that remained of the Edomites. They were regarded and viewed by all those around them as those who were a wicked people who had fallen under the everlasting righteous anger of the living God. The children of Judah's question was, wherein hast thou loved us? The Lord's response was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith the Lord? Yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. In summary, this is the Lord's reasoning here. Esau and Jacob were brothers. Yet God, according to his sovereign good pleasure, loved Jacob, whereas he hated Esau. What had become of Esau and of his descendants, the Edomites? The Edomites were no more. They were no more because the Lord, according to his sovereign good pleasure, had sent the Babylonians to destroy them. But what of Jacob and his descendants? What of the children of Judah? Well, they too, of course, had been conquered by the Babylonians. And they'd been held captive by the Babylonians for 70 plus years. But the children of Judah had not disappeared into the pages of history like the inhabitants of Edom. The Lord had actually brought the children of Judah out of the Babylonian captivity, and he'd enabled them to return to their homeland and to re-establish themselves there. The temple had been restored. The worship of God had been re-established. The walls of Jerusalem had been rebuilt. The children of Judah had been preserved as a people. Yes, chastened, impoverished, persecuted, enduring difficulties and trials, all of those things. But the children of Judah had not been destroyed. The children of Judah had not been cast off forever. Why was that? Because the Lord loved them. They were his peculiar people. Wherein hast thou loved us? Was the question of the children of Judah. The Lord's response was, not Esau Jacob's brother, saith the Lord. And what he really is saying here is consider Esau and his descendants. What happened to Esau and his descendants? Compare that to my dealings with you. Now, brethren, we might ask also, wherein has the Lord loved us? It's the same undeserved, sovereign electing love that sees us preserved, notwithstanding our sin and rebellion. How many times has the Lord spared us? Why has the Lord spared us? The answer is, because I have loved you, saith the Lord. Finally, what's the response that ought to be elicited by the knowledge of the Lord's love for us? The Lord, of course, could have dealt with us as he did with the Edomites. He could have allowed us to simply disappear into the pages of history. He could have done that with us personally. He could have done that with the whole of the human race, for that matter. So what response should the knowledge of the Lord's sovereign electing love elicit from his people? What response should it produce from you and me? Malachi indicates the appropriate response in verse 5. And your eyes shall see, and you shall say, the Lord will be magnified from the border of Israel. As the children of Judah appreciated what had happened to the Edomites in comparison to what had transpired so far as they were concerned, the proper response was one of acclaim and praise for the Lord. You see, there was really no difference. There was really no difference between the children of Judah and the Edomites. It wasn't as though the children of Judah were a God-fearing, upstanding people, whereas the Edomites were simply godless people. The reality was that in many respects, the children of Judah were godless people. Why the difference? The difference was the fact that God loved the children of Judah. On any analysis, the Lord had dealt lovingly with the children of Judah. And so the children of Judah ought to have stood amazed at the enduring nature of God's love for them. It's true to say, I think, that if we were to be in the position of God, we might have grown weary. We might have grown very weary with the sin and the rebellion that was manifested by the children of Judah down through the generations. I think we might personally struggle to maintain our love for such a people. But the Lord did. And they ought to have been amazed at God's enduring love for them. God could have dealt with them as he dealt with the Edomites, but no, out of love for them, the Lord preserved them and kept them. Acclaim and praise for the Lord. That should also be our response for the love that God has bestowed upon us. We are no more deserving than the Edomites. The Lord could justly cast each and every one of us off. He could justly have had indignation with each and every one of us forever. He does not. Why not? Because I have loved you, saith the Lord. Brethren, is that not an extraordinary thing? It is extraordinary that the Lord loved the children of Judah. It's extraordinary that the Lord loves any of us. Let us say with the children of Judah, may the Lord be magnified. Amen.